Well, hello, guys, and welcome. Today we have a few more slides than normal. The first one, of course, is Theodore Roosevelt, aka Teddy Roosevelt, is really more widely used, and he was the president from 1901 to 1909. He did many things, such as be responsible for building the Panama Canal. He was a former assistant secretary of the Navy. He served in the Spanish-American War. He did a lot of stuff. But perhaps what he's best known for is coming up with the square deal. And again, the square deal is not a term we use so much, but it means that you don't cut corners. Square is, we include everything. You're not getting ripped off. You're not getting taken advantage of. And the square deal, and if you'd like to see more about it, there's a pretty good description. Now, you can get as much depth as you want if you go there, but there's a pretty good description of that. It was really a series. It wasn't just one thing. So the square deal wasn't just one law. It was several programs of progressive reforms. So it wasn't just one. And again, the idea of progressivism is to help the average person. It's hard to write with this. Oh well, help people. Yeah, we'll do that one up there. Man. All right. So the average person getting help from Teddy Roosevelt was a square deal, meaning that you're going to get what you deserve and you're not going to get ripped off. Sinclair, he was one of the people who helped expose some of the problems. And you say, well, okay, well, that's great, but why is he so important? Well, if you don't know that a problem exists, then you can't really do anything about it. And so Upton Sinclair, who you could say was a muckraker from a couple of sections ago, he did expose problems. Now, his main focus was on the difficulties of the everyday worker and what happened to the worker. But in his most famous book, The Jungle, he exposed not only the terrible conditions that people had to work in slaughterhouses, but also the terrible conditions of the meat that went to people's dinner tables. And Upton Sinclair was one of the more effective muckrakers because he really did expose massive problems in the way that workers were treated and the way that our food was handled. The book, The Jungle, we mentioned by Upton Sinclair, and you can see some pictures here. It exposes the horrific, and it really was horrific conditions in the meatpacking industry. Um, and again, what happened to the people having to work in dark, slippery, dangerous conditions. And if you got hurt, too bad, you just got fired. If you could never work again, oh well, I guess you're just going to get thrown on the street and die. The way they treated workers was literally inhumane, working them hours and hours and hours and hours for barely enough money to make ends meet. Really not caring about anything other than the maximum amount of profit. And you could maybe see from these pictures here that it's not the greatest working conditions around. However, one of the good things that happened is as a result of the jungle, we have the Meat Inspection Act, which was passed, and it really helped meet safety conditions. Now, of course, you've probably heard we've had every now and then mad cow or E. coli or something like that, but those are really rare considering how many people we have in the country. Um, Prior to the Meat Inspection Act, you wouldn't necessarily be so confident in the quality of your meat. We also have the Pure Food and Drug Act, which required, required to stop the sale of unclean food and drugs, and also required you to actually list what the ingredients were. This is not a misprint, by the way. As you can see, they really did put cocaine and other types of what we now consider very dangerous illegal drugs. They did put those into medicines. And whether or not people knew that, well, I mean, in this case, it's obvious. It's a big, huge sign there. But the argument was that people didn't always know what was going on in their food or their medicine in this case. This was also a result of Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle. Conservation, planned management of natural resources. So we want to conserve forests or lakes or beaches or things like that, meaning that we don't want to just take all the resources, the wood, the ruin the beauty of the beach or things like that. We wanted to manage it so other people can see it as well and enjoy it as well. NAACP is still a strong organization which is still around today, and they are the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and they've been around since 1909, so obviously about 100, a little bit less than 110 years. But they, of course, worked for racial equality, and they're still working to this day. And that is it. Thank you for watching.